Hi, Ian, and good morning to you. I guess it's reasonably early in the morning for you in the UK. Well, it's dinner time here in New Zealand.
Yeah, hi, Kirsty. Good evening to you, and good morning to those in the UK, I guess, because that's where I am today.
Yep. Yeah, you managed to sneak in as the last on the Oceania slate
Yeah,
today,
I'm
and
an honorary Antipodean, I guess.
yes, yeah. We've chucked Rob England into your side of the world for today, so we'll claim you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing Rob later today.
Yes.
I'm heading up to the SDI conference later, so
Oh,
I know he'll
wonderful.
be.
Right, well, I'm just, without any further ado, I'm going to hand control of everything over to you, Ian. Do you just want to tell the world a little bit about yourself to start with, where what you do for a day job, and a little bit
Yeah,
about what you're going to be telling us?
yeah, sure. So, I'm Ian Aitchison. I'm the product director at Landesk Software. And I look after the Landesk Service Desk product line, which is an ITSM tool. I've been in the ITSM industry for a long time. I did have a little beard. I've shaved it off for over 20 years now in various roles, from working in support to managing a service desk team to implementation, and now product management and product direction. So um, that's me. I've been around a while, presented various sessions, and looking forward to spending some time now going through some ideas and some thoughts.
Wonderful. Well, it's all yours. I'll put the focus on you. Once you've got your slides shared, I'll hide myself and mute, and I will see you at the end of your presentation with questions.
Fantastic. So bear with me for just 1 second. Let's go into screen share. Hopefully you can now see a spectacular graphic.
We can. Okay, Ian, I will hide myself, and it's all yours.
Marvelous. Can you see me as well, by the way? Or was it just the graphic? Oh, you've gone quiet already, Kirsty. All right, so I'm going to carry on talking. Welcome, everybody. I'm very pleased to be able to join TFT once again this year. It all seems to be going very well and very exciting. I'd like to talk for the next 50 minutes or so around some big concepts and some little concepts. We're going to be looking ahead slightly to the future, but I'm also talking about a big shift that's happening at the moment around us, which puts corporate IT in an interesting position where it's challenged and has opportunities. And I'm talking a little bit about how revolution in technology is exposing some of the weaknesses in our IT models and how we operate. And then I'm going to drill down into some specific details of things we could be doing. So it starts really big. Think of it like a pyramid inverted. So it starts talking big, and we're going to drill down through our interconnected world, IT, human proximity, and then we're going to focus in on why ITIL struggles with that and why IT struggles with that, and look at repurposing some of the concepts in ITIL in a completely different way. And I'll finish with some examples of interacting and working in the way that I've described. So we work our way down to some real people stories right at the end. So that's what we're going to be covering. Maybe the starting point is with the big stuff, though, and it's an interesting fact. There are 4.3 billion IP addresses currently definable, available, that exist. There's 7.1 billion people on Earth. It's 20 billion devices anticipated to be online by 2016. Slightly different forecasts around that. Other ones are slightly different numbers, but all in that scale. In other words, more people and more devices than there are IP addresses. And on the right of the screen there, you can see the allocation of those devices in Europe, Middle East, Asia Pacific. They've already used up all of the allocated IPv4 addresses. There's still a few available for Americas, Latin America and Africa, but basically time is kind of running out on availability of IP addresses, individual unique items on the internet. But of course, it's not a bv6 problem because IPv6 is coming in. And my presentation isn't really about this, but what I wanted to do is just spend a minute or two talking about the fact that actually the move to IPv6, which is now underway and has started, makes the internet even bigger than it has been before. To give us an idea on this, IPv6 gives us 340 trillion unique addresses. 52,000 trillion addresses per person on the planet, 100 addresses for every atom on the surface of the Earth, 4.8 trillion addresses for every star in the known universe. I love these crazy, way out there ideas, but the point is it's very, very big. We can accommodate a great deal of connectivity on the new growing internet, and the number of people's going up. Cisco, a recent report from Cisco told us there's 2.3 billion internet users at the moment. They're forecasting that to reach 3.6 in 2017. Broadband speed will grow dramatically. And importantly, IP traffic will reach an annual run rate of 1.4 zettabytes, up from 523 exabytes. So there you go. I was trying to work out how best to picture that. Because these are just crazy words and crazy numbers. A byte is 8 bits. Multiply that by 1024, and these are rounded slightly, but you get a kilobyte. Multiply that by 1024, you get a megabyte. 1024, you get a gigabyte. 1024, you get a terabyte. There are 1024 terabytes in a petabyte. There are 1024 petabytes in an exabyte, which holds all of the words ever spoken by human beings if we had them all recorded. Interesting quote on the right there. Bill Gates thought 640k would be enough for us back in 1981. Clearly it's not. We need a great deal more, and we're accommodating that very well. And a minor point of entertaining trivia, if you work your way down that list, after zettabytes you come to yottabytes. And I didn't know this. Yottabytes are apparently named after Yoda in Star Wars. So there we go, your interesting trivia true fact from this session. But the two important words, per annum, or per year if you like, that's the amount of traffic that we're talking about that's going to be, that is currently and will be transmitted over the internet now and in the future. It's a large quantity of traffic. So what's generating all this traffic? Where's the growth coming from? Well, obviously, it comes from things. It comes from things that are connected to the internet. We have more things than people. And we passed that number in 2008, and the number keeps growing and growing and growing. In fact, they forecast in 2017 nearly half of all IP traffic will come from non-PC devices, from 12 billion to 19 billion network devices, and an average of 7.1 connected devices per household. And I looked at this and I thought, that doesn't seem very large. So that's my non-geek disclosure. I'm not very geeky. I don't have enormous amounts of servers and technology, but I did go around my house and just do a little audit, a little inventory. I checked out my domestic CMDB and devices with IP addresses. There's one laptop, there's a network attached storage, there's a modem and a router, there's a wireless printer, which is rubbish, there's a Sonos device, a mobile phone signal extender, an Apple TV, a PVR, an interconnected TV. There's 2 iPads, one of them with a cracked screen. There's 2 iPhones, mine and my wife's, and there's a Kindle. And that's not including some of the old consumer junk in a box in a cupboard, like the internet radio and so on that aren't used so much. The point is, I think 7.1 is quite a small forecast for 2017. But what you'll notice from all of those devices is they're consumer devices. We are increasingly seeing the advantage of bringing consumer devices into the home and connecting our lives to the internet. Here's Twine. You can look Twine up on the Kickstarter website. They needed $35,000 pledged to build and introduce this new technology. They got 556,000, so they well overachieved on that one. Twine is a little box. You can buy multiples of them, little green box. It's got a software UI that lets you set rules, and when it's temperature sensors or accelerometers or switches or moisture sensors, detect things happening, you define rules. And those rules enable Twine to send text messages, Twitter, email, or configurable HTTP. And that's the important one. And we may refer to that one a little bit later on, actually. But the point is, you can buy little boxes that you can connect to the internet, and they will talk across the internet to other systems and to you. And this is clearly something that we're keen to do and interested in. In fact, you can buy this one right now, Nest. This is a great little shiny gadget. This is on my wish list. This is a device that lets you control the heating in your house, the thermostat, but it learns from your behaviour. So as you turn it up and turn it down, it learns and remembers the patterns and the way you do that. And it introduces savings by applying rules and heating controls based on what you've been doing. But the great bit is, of course, it's connected to the internet. It's got an IP address, you can talk to it, you can interact with it, you can track and monitor your house's usage, you can remotely control it from anywhere, pretty much on any device, no matter where you are. So we love these sorts of things. And we're making it easier and easier to get to the internet. Now, these Google Balloons were launched in Kirsty's region, I believe, in New Zealand. They just launched the test balloons last week. Google Balloons, which are intended to float high up in somewhere in the stratosphere on a permanent basis, powered by solar panels built into the balloons and providing wireless internet access to those little funny red boxes you see in the top left-hand corner, little red bubbles. And it's the idea of a floating network of internet connectivity. It seems like science fiction, doesn't it? But they're in the sky right now. They were launched last week, being prototyped. I believe they're still up there. I haven't heard they've come down. And you can kind of see how that's an inevitable future to making it easier for us to always be connected, because everything is becoming connected. Everything's massively interconnected. We talk about the Internet of Things, of devices, machine to machine, of mobile. We're mobile, carrying mobile things. We expect to be able to connect frequently to Wi-Fi everywhere, ideally for free. So my point is here, it's big, it's growing, and it's only going to keep growing, and this is normal life for us. We like to get close to it. It's normal life. We like it, and we like it within our reach. We like devices that are close. 29% of Americans say their phone is the first and the last thing that they look at every day. Many of us wake up and the first thing you do is reach over, pick up that mobile device, check what's been happening whilst you've been unconscious. And we like that. We like being physically close to the technology. These are consumer technologies we're talking about here. This is Jawbone Up. It's a little wristband you wear. So physically rests against your body, and it captures your movement, it captures your activity. It records and communicates back with your mobile device. You have an app that you can look at to see what you did when you slept, how you slept, what your sleep patterns are like, what your activity patterns are like. You can enter the food that you've eaten. And it keeps a track of your behaviour and your information on what you're doing. It's close. Now, we're not getting into augmentation and to the further down the line here. This is just consumer devices that you can buy right now or imminently that we enjoy and get value from by bringing internet close to us. Bottom left here, this is my little Pebble watch, which I'm very proud of, receiving a notification of an incident that's been resolved by the service desk. So now messages come in, notifications happen, tweets happen, my watch buzzes quietly on my wrist. I don't have to pull out my mobile device and look down. I don't have to take my eyes away for more than a brief instant just to see what that little buzz was. Having worn it for a while, I can tell you it does make a difference, actually. I can now see how irritating it is when you're walking along permanently looking down at the shiny device in your hand. And that's the idea behind Google Glass. Great little presentation from Sergey Brin on TED you can take a look at, where he talks about one of the driving factors behind Google Glass is to get away from that look down, closed in, lost in your mobile world by bringing mobile into your periphery vision. So you can look up and continue to look around. And that opens up all sorts of fantastic ideas. That's a little way off Google Glass. We haven't quite got it yet. There's a few out there. We all interact with these to a lesser or greater extent. QR codes, they're a fascinating thing because they are providing you with the ability, by holding a mobile device in your hand without physically touching something, to look up more information or perform some type of action. And I like to think of them as virtual buttons. And I know they're used a lot for things like advertising, and often we look at them and think, well, what's the point of that? But little news flash bottom left there, Mercedes-Benz are now putting QR codes on the components in their cars so that crash rescuers can quickly look up and access information about it. It's becoming a standard, and it's more than just look up, but it puts us in close contact with that enormously big world that's out there. So what are we saying? We're saying there's lots and lots of devices. There's a very big internet. It's close to everybody. It's of a mind-boggling size. It really is. But it's very close to us. And we're used to this. We're swimming in this sea of fantastic technology and communication. And our expectations have changed. This is what we expect as normal, I'll say, consumers of the advantages of the internet and of technology that's connected and physically close to us. Our expectations of normal have changed. We expect and anticipate and demand to be able to reach out and do the things we want to do. We expect to be able to do it ourselves. You know, the definition of normal has changed, and there's that great word consumerization, and that's what I'm leading to with this point. That enormous interconnected nature of the internet, and its always easy availability and its delivery to multiple devices that we have with us, has changed our expectation of what we do. It's changed our expectation of what we can do and what we want to do. It's a great little quote there. This is from Landesk's CEO, and it's a good one too. Work is what I do. It's not a place I go. Work is what I do, not a place I go. I think that's a great definition of where we are now. I was doing this slide that we're looking at now. I was putting this into PowerPoint on a Saturday morning, sitting by the side of a public swimming pool as my son was having his swimming lesson, because I chose to be productive that way. I chose to take my laptop and be able to do a little bit of work in that place at that time on my terms, my way. Now, it's consumerization. It's something that's talked about a lot. It's no alien concept to us. So in terms of my scene setting and laying some pieces out, is there enough internet to go around? Yeah, there certainly is. Is there enough connectivity? Yep, and it's getting better. Do we like technology? Very much indeed. We like it, we carry it, we wear it, we want to be self-sufficient because of it, and it enables us to be more productive, and we want to be more productive. So, there's the good news. Now the slightly bad news. Why is it that IT struggles to take advantage of this? Why is that IT is often criticised and often perceived as not enabling greater productivity, but hindering it? What is the deal with corporate IT? Well, I mentioned right at the start this concept that IT, corporate IT, is evolutionary. It evolves in response to changes in the environment. The environment changes and it evolves to accommodate that and get benefit from it, and it moves forward in a natural evolution. Unfortunately, technology comes in from left field and is spectacularly revolutionary and just changes the rules time and time and time again. So IT is always playing catch up. It's always attempting to enforce some control on the environment, and understandably so. I'm not saying it shouldn't. It has to, but it's in an evolutionary state while technology is changing around it. And I love that little quote there. Most of what we call management consists of making it difficult for people to get their work done. I don't entirely agree with that from a pure management perspective. I think a lot of management does help people get their work done, but if you take that and put it in an IT management context, and then if you asked employees of an organisation, do you think your IT department, your IT team, your IT management function makes it difficult for people to get their work done or easy? I think in light of some of the things I've been talking about, we would see an increasing number of people saying it does make it difficult. IT does make it harder for me to be productive. So there's a bit of a wall that's developed between IT and the business. A big wall behind which is IT doing IT stuff, building the servers, defining the services, understanding the relationships between the CIs, doing impact analysis, defining our problem processes, all of the different activities. And on the other side of the wall is the rest of the business, trying to do their job. Now, I'm no ITIL deep expert. There's many people that know way more about the fine detail of ITIL than myself. But I took a bit of time to, with my contact with ITIL that I do have, just to think about which parts of ITIL actually interact not with the customer representative of a customer department or a customer group, in terms of sort of high level service level agreements and service level management and relationship management, but what parts of ITIL actually enable the IT department to interact with the human end user, the individual doing the job that wants to be productive. And a very small proportion of ITIL actually enables that. And even within these areas, there's a good chance it's not actually reaching out, contacting, communicating, and part of those people's ordinary working life. ITIL is focused on helping IT get control and manage a complex IT environment, which is fine. It's not very focused on helping the individual, the human end user, be more productive in the work that they do. A little Forrester survey here was telling us that 57% of surveyed organizations implement or expand the use of web filtering software. 41% do everything we can to prevent or remove employee software. 19% only are planning tablet support. 14% have some form of enterprise app store. And I'm not going to talk about something I often talk about, which is particularly self-service and the enterprise app store and those concepts. But it's interesting examples of how IT is struggling for management and control. And the area that suffers is the area where in our normal lives we're having great productivity and value with technology close to us and easy access to internet power. But the business isn't giving us that. So the demand is there. The infrastructure's there. IT struggles. So what's the solution? And I don't have a huge, great, big solution. I have some interesting points to make, which I think give us some ideas of what the solution could be or where the solution is. And maybe, just maybe inspires some imagination and thought around what you have currently. So I think a big part of the solution is the ITSM tool that an organisation is using. I think they're kind of special, and I would think that because I'm biased and I work for a tool vendor, but I'm not talking particularly about Landesk's service management tool. I mean, any world-class standard service management tool has some built-in potential which it has to have. It's probably the only tool in the IT portfolio that simultaneously lets you build websites and dashboards and define fields and windows and communicate in multiple different ways across multiple platforms and define workflow that people follow as well as workflow that technology follows, and then measure that and present metrics and deliver that and work with it across multiple platforms and integrate with the knife that cuts and the fork that stabs and the spoon that does what a spoon does, integrate with the tools that do individual things. The ITSM tool is kind of unique in its ability to be more than just one thing. And in fact, if all you use an ITSM tool for is the pieces that are described in the ITIL books, it's a bit like taking a food processor and only ever using it for slicing cucumbers. Saying, okay, well, there can only ever be these things. I think the Pink organisation verify 15 ITIL processes for tools. So to use it only for those 15 is great for ITIL, but as we've seen, that's not everything. Now we know, many service management tools do this, you can do way more because these tools are so flexible. Whether it's HR or FM or DevOps, or project management or asset management or offering a social platform to the business, I mean the list goes on and on, because you're working with a process-driven solution with a UI that you can change and define and reallocate and repoint. So there's that rather powerful tool. And there's ITIL, which is kind of back-focused. And now I want to do that big shift, a bit like the event horizon. We're going to cross a point, and I'm going to take something which is very back-focused and look at it from a completely different angle, and probably from a slightly vendor technology angle as well. And just come to a bit of a conclusion with this as we lead forward. I'm going to talk about event management. And event management, I always chuckle a bit on this because when I describe event management to people that are not very close to ITIL particularly, try Googling it. Google event management. You'll come up with all sorts of things that don't have a great deal to do with IT because, of course, event management is organising things like TFT and organising all sorts of different things. So that's one of the searches I ran. Turned me up some Morris dancers. So it's not that, but it's such a great photo. I just love putting a picture of a Morris dancer in an IT presentation. But no, event management, of course, is, and these are my words, is about following a process. When you receive notification from other tools and technologies that something has deviated from the norm, some form of alert is received, which may be serious or notification or warning. And that would create or initiate some type of process, an event process that's followed in response to that. Now, the thing about event management, this is why I'm calling this out particularly, is when you're using a service management tool, that process being followed is not only created by an external tool, but it can be updated by an external tool, and it can be completed or closed or resolved by an external tool. In other words, it's the point in service management where technology is talking to technology but following process, and it's the point where other tools can perform process activities, but it's the only point in ITIL which kind of defines that. The only point where, if you're doing event management, you have technology talking to technology and process defining what happens next. Event management is like buttons. I like to think of it that way. It's something that's there. Here's a event process created by an external tool. Various things happen in that process. Maybe we need to create an incident. Maybe we need to create a change. Maybe a note needs to be added saying the issue is still ongoing. And an external tool would press that button and say there's still an issue here. Press that button and say there's still an issue here. And then maybe it gets resolved, and maybe that's done by an external tool. And maybe those buttons that are pressed by those monitoring tools or other systems are nothing more than HTTP addresses. You remember the QR code that we mentioned earlier, like a button that can call an HTTP address, or the Twine device, which can send HTTP addresses. So things can press these buttons, can perform these actions. And this is the bit that's defined, and we may be following it already. So here's where we turn it slightly upside down. Okay, so events don't have to come from monitoring tools. In fact, forget event, backend, IT, service, CMDB, all of those relationships of what delivers value to the end user. Just think about that idea. If you've got event management, you've defined a way that you can push buttons into your process. So why not take those buttons and give them to people? Why not give humans the ability to perform event actions, not just create, but make things move on? It's to do with people interacting with process. If I press that break glass button here, why shouldn't that then write into a process and make something else happen, a physical object? So no, it's not about ITIL event management, not about monitoring tools, it's about humans. It's about that consumerized world with contact with the very large internet. So why don't we take advantage of that and let the human end user interact with the IT process, which is usually behind the wall? Let them interact directly, and controversially, why not go beyond a self-service interface? Why not offer it in a different way? Here's, in the middle of the screen there, you can see some buttons which I go through Heathrow Airport occasionally, and if you go through security, they've got this just on the air side. It's a little box with some buttons on it, and as people walk past, they press a button to say whether they thought it was good. Well, you can see good, slightly bad, very bad. You can press the buttons. Now that's just recording a point in time. It's capturing a moment, it's capturing an instant. It's pressing a button. Now QR codes are another way of doing this. NFC, near field communication, is going to be coming very soon. It'll give us this too. It'll give us the ability to stand somewhere and do something relevant to where we are. But you can do that now with a QR code. I can go and stand somewhere and look at a wall, look at a poster, look at a sign, pass by an entrance and wave my mobile device at it, and it will show me something or do something. It'll fire off an HTTP address that will do something. So we're back to those QR code ideas again. They're not brilliant, but they're kind of what we've got right now, and that's what I wanted to bring out. This isn't a crazy future thing. You can build a QR code now. Go to Google, go to goo.gl, in fact. Type in a URL, it'll shorten it for you, and then it'll give you a link so you can see a QR code for us as well. Now that URL might be interacting with your processes. Now, I was thinking how best to describe this, and I thought, let's just do some stories. Let's just go through some examples of how this would appear and feel in a working environment. Let's look at some human event-driven activity, a day in the life, if you like. And I'd say all of these are possible with an ITSM tool, with a bit of configuration, with a bit of intention. You could introduce this sort of working experience. So let's imagine Susan has arrived at her new job. Maybe it's her first day at her new job. She's got her own phone with her, of course, BYOD. She's bought her own device. As she arrives at reception, maybe there's a sign for new employees by reception. It's got some text on it telling her what to do, and it's got some QR codes to do different things, and she scans her new phone on that code. And that comes through, initiates a process with IT, a request process, and they provision secure mobile device management, maybe a sandbox, maybe the settings and components necessary for that device to be supported in the workplace. Maybe she has access to then all her shortcuts she needs to do her job. She's just turned up, waved her phone over there because she expects to be able to do that, and this happens for her. Now, because she's then registered, we know who she is, of course, because there's a whole service management process behind her recruitment, her entry into AD or whatever source we're using. Of course, we know about her. And when we know she's arrived, that same activity initiates notification telling her where her desk is, useful links, people she can talk to, her calendar schedule for that day summarized, maybe some notes from her boss who's out of the office that day. She can open up a laptop, click on links on the email, and that'll be correctly provisioned as well. Maybe it's her own laptop that she's brought in for that too. So all that's delivered to her. And then she has a meeting coming up, so she prints out a document, gets up, goes to the meeting. On the way to the meeting, she stops by the printer to pick up her document. And what do you know? It's not there. There's no paper in the printer. There's no paper in the spare paper cupboard. Cupboard where the spares are kept is empty. There's no spares. So what would you or I do in that situation? I think human nature, of course, we'd go all the way back to our desk, wouldn't we? Yes, right. We'd turn around, go all the way back to our desk, sit back down, reopen our laptop, browse to our self-service, and let them know that there's a problem with that printer and that there's no paper. So I can't change the paper myself, which is often the case. Of course, in a modern world, maybe we'd open up mobile self-service, so she'd stand by the printer and take her phone out and click, 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 and point her way through till she creates an incident. But I think it's quite likely that you or I might actually just walk away because someone's going to change the paper, aren't they? So someone will do it. And then when she comes back from her meeting, she can pick it up. However, in this world, there's a little poster by the printer with some little codes on it, some buttons, and she takes her phone, scans a button and says, "There's no spare paper," and carries on to her meeting. That took her, I don't know, 5 seconds. What she's done is ensured that when she comes back from the meeting, the paper will be there and nobody else will be impacted, because that's immediately created an incident with the right team. Is it facilities? Is it IT? It's a bit of a blend. It's achieving pretty much the same thing. A bit closer to facilities, maybe, in the meeting room. She's sitting there with a bunch of people and they're having a great meeting. But the battery on her laptop's starting to run low, so she needs to charge it up and realises that she can't reach the power sockets with her lead. So she needs an extension so it'll reach far enough for her to charge her up. And then, you know what, that light up there keeps flashing as well. There's a flickering light in the ceiling. Those are just a couple of examples of physical things in a room. But of course she goes over to the little poster in the corner of the room, giving her a whole bunch of options. Report a fault with the projector, report a fault with the lights, request additional cables, various things you can do. And while she's talking, she still just reaches out, points her phone, touches those buttons, carries on with the meeting, and shortly an engineer or an expert or somebody carrying some things turns up and during the meeting drops in the power lead and plugs in the new bulb, and on the way out he just waves his phone over that particular button. It says it's done. Now, that resolves that particular request, or those requests, automatically, because all of these steps that we're talking about are part of service management processes that we can define in IT, and often we do define them in IT, but we don't distribute them around the business as buttons that the end user, the human end user, can interact with. So then Susan goes to lunch in the canteen, and she's sitting there enjoying her ravioli and garlic bread. And on the way out notices a poster from IT, because IT loves putting posters around talking about how good we are at what we do, reminding people that actually, yes, email hasn't gone down for the last 18 months. You just didn't notice it was good, but we are good because we do a good job, you just don't know. But one of the things on this poster is advertising new services, advertising new things to people. If you're interested in this, maybe you should receive or access or request access to this new service that we're now offering. And so, she says, that's great, that's useful for me. So out comes the phone again, she presses that button, presses that virtual button, scans that code, request is initiated, process is followed. Maybe there's some automation involved there where the process talks to delivery software and systems management software, and by the time she gets back to her desk, her phone has received the app that's used for that service, her laptop has received the Windows application that's used for that service, more than one location delivered to, and all of the necessary license and verification and validation has been done. Of course, that's been done because that's just ITSM process, right? All of that, ensuring the right thing goes to the right person at the right time. That's what we're all about. This is what we do in IT. So we should be very comfortable with that. The difference is, all Susan had to do was say, yep, yeah, I'd like that, please. Scan, move on. Oh, and then you know what? Now there's an error on her laptop. She can't get onto the network. There's a big error message comes up. So pulls out her mobile, takes a photo of the screen. Maybe that photo sent straight over to IT, who receive it. They can understand the nature of the problem immediately. Maybe they video conference to the phone. Maybe they remote in. Maybe she even points the phone camera on video conference to the screen if they don't have remote control software. But either way, the correct driver causing the problems redeployed by IT live. She hasn't had to go into filling in forms. She hasn't had to go into entering detail, but she is very easily able to communicate with IT. And it's the end of the day. So off she goes. I think this example's been used a few times in these areas particularly, but she's on her way home and somebody steals her phone. Maybe she puts her handbag down on the train or the bus. She's chatting away to a colleague, and the phone's gone. But luckily, she's got a colleague with her, and her colleague pulls out her mobile device, and Susan can very easily access and say, you know what, I'd like to I'd like to report I've lost it. I'd like my profile, my business profile, wiped off that device, and optionally, I'd like a replacement. You know, I don't want to use my own one. I'd like a corporate one now, please. And our process in the background, because this is what IT does, would ensure that we validate she can have one, that there is budget for one. Ideally, go to a courier that could rush it home to a place of work. And then when it arrives, the delivery guy turns up, and he's been sent the detail of what to deliver, and printed out, as we see often these days, is a little delivery note. Excuse me. Is a little delivery note with a little code on it generated from the service management process that she initiated. She takes the phone and scans it and says, yep, confirmed. That's my action to say I have received it correctly, and that completes that process. So there we go. Crazy fanciful ideas, right? Insane, mad future, it'll never happen concepts. Well, is it really that unrealistic? I don't know. What we did, IT assisted on every step in that story, and IT assisted Susan in being productive, and IT connected the end user directly to the process itself and enabled them to interact as they carried on their working day in a fashion they're used to, using the tools they have. And it didn't require typing and searching and logging into things, and even completing complex forms, because sometimes we don't need to do that. It didn't require contacting IT, except in one case. It did support consumerization. It supported Susan with her choice of working, and it supported her self-sufficiency as well. She chose to do the things she wanted to do, and she retained control and retained authority over what was happening in her life. So it's all possible now. It's all achievable. And we looked at arrival, we looked at find my desk, we looked at there's a fault with the printer, we looked at the meeting, there's a fault with the room, we looked at requesting new services, we looked at the error, we looked at replacing and wiping stolen devices. Now all these things are possible. If you've got an ITSM tool, you have the framework to do this. If it's got self-service, if it's got mobile support, if you can integrate it with other tools, if it can automate connection across other tools as well, then it's even more suitable. But my point is, particularly, we shouldn't necessarily look too far away from home for solutions, because we may find we're using them in different ways. The concept of pressing buttons to interact with processes boils all the way down to what you may already be doing with event management. That's the strange thing about it. It's possible. So, gosh, I'm finishing a little bit early, so advance warning to Kirsty. I'm on my last 2 slides 10 minutes earlier than I expected. But because we live in a massively connected, always accessible mobile world, and because we've got close human IT proximity and we like it and we enjoy it, well, then we do have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to find some connections between the human end user and connect them directly to our ITSM process. Now, we talk about this a lot as user-oriented IT. It's about kind of repositioning IT and trying to find ways for IT to be perceived as an innovator and be recognized as enabling greater business productivity. That doesn't mean completely defocusing on managing and controlling IT at the back end. Of course not. We have to do that. It's very important. But let's start introducing ways that we can focus on the human being receiving the end result of our activities. And that means thinking about automation and integration and building up from best practice, but not being limited by what's defined there, and combining disciplines that we're already doing, whether systems or security or service or mobile, and offering self-service and moving into self-management and self-sufficiency, offering greater abilities to the user. Gosh, and there you go. I'm all done. I'm all done just 5 minutes faster than I'd anticipated to be done. So what I'm going to do is stop my slideshow.
Well done. I mean, you had me sitting here with my mouth open half the time. Some of the facts and figures you were sending out there, it was absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
Love the use of QR codes.
Good.
So,
Okay. It's one example, as I say, but I think it's a good example of the things there that you have.
What actually is possible in the future. It's and not the too distant future either. Probably it's.
Oh no, that's right.
I mean, the technology is all there. It just needs to be turned on the way we want it. I mean, I tweeted out it was like you were walking around with a service desk in your pocket on your mobile phone.
It's or even pervasive. I don't know, a pervasive IT service. So as you move around, you're embraced by what IT can offer you, rather than having to go to open a window somewhere on a device somewhere to get it. It's actually part of your working space.
Yeah. Got a question here for you that's coming from Karen Ferris. Do you think that IT are the best people to think about user-oriented IT, or do we need another area of the business to look at this?
That's a great question, and I'm thinking of something I was talking about a little while back on self-service, and what we've seen with some organisations that have implemented very successful IT self-service. And there's maybe a pattern there, which is, in a few cases, we've seen organisations where an individual has been brought in with a retail background into IT. So somebody that's used to running a store, a shop, someone that's used to running a commercial operation that thinks about things like attracting customers, thinks about advertising, thinks about the value of marketing, And they've been able to take things like self-service, the reaching out to the business, but in an IT context, and deliver a very effective solution. I don't think a traditional IT background gives you that grounding in customers, attracting business, selling value, whether there's a dollar sign involved or not. But I think it has to come from IT. Maybe we need to get some different people in IT.
Yeah, get maybe a different type of person to come and work in IT in the future. It's we're starting to need new skill sets.
Yeah, sorry, I lost you at the end of that sentence.
I just said we're starting to need some new skill sets in IT.
Yes, I think that's right. I think homegrown IT, and I speak as kind of a homegrown IT person myself, if you start in a simple IT admin role and you work your way up in IT, that doesn't actually give you the sort of business skills you need at a more senior level of IT. There's financial considerations, obviously, but increasingly think about the consumer world we live in and the fact that we need really to be thinking more in a consumer level standard expectation, behave in that way. And I don't think we get that from growing up only in IT. Recruit from out, bring in some expertise.
Mm-hmm. We need to start looking outside the square and the sort of people that we are employing in IT now, because there are certainly some new skills that can be brought to the table very successfully.
Yeah, and everything is IT now as well. That's the funny thing about it.
Right.
Yeah, everything is IT. So
IT's become so important that it isn't anymore.
That's right. And that's it. Yes, that's it. It's become so big. It's become everything and invisible and ceases to exist. Yes.
Exactly. Well, I think I'll just see if we've got any more questions for you. No, the Twitter stream has gone quiet again. I think everyone was a little bit gobsmacked by what you were showing us. It really was. I mean, it really did open my eyes. Some of those facts and figures at the beginning, and moving into what can be possible in the future is really exciting. You were certainly an event horizon that I'm interested in seeing.
Excellent. Okay. Well, good luck with the rest of today. This is your shift finished right about now.
Yeah, this is mine. I'll be handing the baton over to Mark Smalley for the next 8 hours, and I'm going to go and pour myself a glass of wine, I think.
Well deserved. I'm sure.
It's been a fairly long day, but absolutely fascinating day. There's been some brilliant presentations from the 8 people that I've had the pleasure of interacting with today.
Yeah, it's a shame I wasn't able to catch the earlier ones because I was asleep in bed.
You'll be able to watch them though. That's the beauty of TFT, is nothing is lost. It continues to be consumed for as long as anyone wants to look at it.
Yeah, that's great.
Well done, and thanks for your effort and hard work going into that today. It was a really good presentation then. You have a great day and enjoy Believe.
Thanks a lot. See you then.
Okay, bye.
Introducing MyIT from BMC Software. One quick download and the way your users think about IT changes forever. Let's say they need a networked printer, or a Wi-Fi connection, or even a map of an office they're visiting. MyIT already knows where they are and shows them a list of available resources and services pre-configured for their devices. Or maybe your user needs help with something more complex. With MyIT, they can do most things themselves. But if they can't, they can simply schedule an appointment with a technician who can. In short, MyIT is built to make your IT organization more modern and your users infinitely happier, dramatically changing the perception of your services